Sales, marketing, and RevOps. It's sink or swim out there, and yesterday's strategies and tactics won't help you today. This is Revenue Today, and I'm your host, Jared Robin. Join me as we interview revenue leaders in our community to learn what steps we could take right now to help you scale yourself and your company. Revenue Today is sponsored by RevGenius, and we're on a mission to bring inspiration and creativity to all revenue professionals in the world. Want to shout out our sponsor, Demandbase. Demandbase is smarter GTM for B2B brands. They help marketing and sales teams spot the juiciest opportunities earlier and progress them faster by injecting account intelligence into every step of the buyer journey and orchestrating every action. For more information about Demandbase, visit demandbase.com.
Know where you win, super important. The next most important thing, and Gina, if you could flip us along, is pipeline. JB, take it away.
Yeah. So I think, as Inti mentioned, like knowing the deals you win, knowing where you win, knowing how you win, really important. If you just kind of follow that a little bit further down, I think the next kind of maybe obvious, maybe not so obvious question is, cool. So now we know where we win. How much pipeline do I actually need to hit my goal and to hit quota? I think, there's kind of a standard, like, take your win rate, and then divide that or multiply that to actually understand how much pipeline you need. So if you win 50% of your deals, you have a quota of 100K, you need 200K of quota to hit goal, kind of basic sales math. But at a time like this, I think it's that question doesn't become as standard and as obvious, especially when the environment is shifting. I think the default playbook for most companies leaders to use is kind of a volume-based approach, which is some version of like, hey, if we're expecting more deals, we'll push and our win rates will probably decrease or drop, then we need to have more pipeline and, more deals in the pipeline, I should say, to actually account for this, which is fair. But while I wouldn't say that increasing volume is wrong, I think the right answer, at least from my perspective, is probably a little bit more nuanced and kind of a blanket approach of how much pipeline do we need, answer more. Which kind of goes back to like the deals that we're actually working. But before I kind of go further on this and give my insights and all that, I'd actually love to hear from Kendra and T on this. Kendra and T, excuse me. Kendra, I'm actually kind of curious. How are you thinking about like your own pipeline and your own deals right now in terms of what you're working, what's working, how much, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah. I know this brings me back to when we used to do pipeline reviews together. But yeah, I think most reps are feeling this right now, right? Your pipeline probably looks slimmer than it has over the past couple of quarters. And oftentimes it's, we start to act out of scarcity versus thinking like abundance mindset and really, how can we generate more pipeline that's quality versus quantity that might actually not be real pipeline, right? So for myself as a rep, I'm doing a lot more deal reviews with other team members or just really thinking about, what deals are in my pipeline, which ones need the highest priority or which ones have maybe the most likelihood of really moving forward and converting, and really ensuring that I'm doing every single small step to continue to move it forward. Thinking about in your pipeline, where are your strongest champions and the best business case, and really ensuring that the right timing exists to change instead of seeing, things like sticking with the status quo or no change actually happening. A story that I have for one deal that we actually had earlier this year is we had a great champion that really just had strong clout at a financial company. And she, was really sharing that she could make change happen. But we learned later on in the deal that she had already recruited another executive sponsor besides our main executive sponsor to push the deal with Lattice. And I think that was a huge part of why we were able to stick to the right timing, stick to an agreed upon signature date, and avoid some hiccups that can naturally happen is because we had multiple exec sponsorships. So thinking about that with even your, number one deal for the quarter and your top 3 deals for the quarter and how you can continue to really test your champion, but cultivate a great one too.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. That's a great story. I think it's easy to kind of get into a bit of a scarcity mindset, especially when things get a little bit tougher to kind of start hoarding for lack of a better phrase, hoarding opportunities, having more in the pipeline to make you feel more secure and more comfortable. The reality is, I think in that type of mindset, most people can't realistically work a significant amount of deals or more than what their average actually is. So it gets harder. And I think you end up kind of getting to this spiral, or you can get into this spiral where it gets harder to know where to spend your time. So I think that totally makes sense. Appreciate the story. And T, I'm actually curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, mate. So I'm just raring to go. I think on my side, like one of the things, and this sort of ties back to knowing where you win, like even if you know where you win and you sort of look back over the last few years and you sort of say like, hey, we win these deals at, let's sort of say like a really high rate. Like we win these deals at like a 40%, rate, something like that. It's a very strong area. That's going to go down, right? Like, so it still might be the best win rate, but that in all likelihood, that's probably still going to go down. And I would say that, and this is not to sound like a jerk or anything, but I would say that in good times, it's easy to let bad habits in or to be, a little bit lazy on some deals and be like, oh, that one's going to be fine now. And like, you have to like forget about that. And I would say that, being very intentional and thoughtful about like following all the right steps, all the right process, trying to sort of go through this and like really treat every deal with that you think is a real winner with like care and love and, water that plant, etc. I think that sort of really matters. And I would say that, again, with this pipeline thing, there is that inclination of like, oh, we just need more we need way more pipeline in here. And I totally understand that. But I think that the reality is that deals that, let's say that a deal, used to take you, I'm pulling numbers out of the air here, but it used to take you 20 hours of work for this deal, or 10 hours, I'll say 10 just to pick a number out of there. It took 10 hours of work to sort of get this deal done. Maybe that deal now needs like 15 and for the same sort of win rate. And that kind of means that if you play that game of just, taking your pipeline from, again, pull a number out of the air, 20 deals in your pipeline to 40, like it actually can be harder to really give the effort and energy to like really make sure those good deals come through and get closed at a good rate. And I think that's, again, that can sort of work against you if you go down that pipeline stuffing path, or you hang on to deals for too long. Like a cluttered pipeline, it's just hard to be focused on what actually matters, like what is real, what matters. And I think that, I think you do, like it's hard. Like this isn't like easy stuff. This is like where, again, like the really like excellent sellers show themselves and prove themselves, but it's not by, cheating. It's not by being lazy. It's not all, there's no sort of, I'm sorry. This, if you came to this webinar expecting like this simple hack is going to change your life. We're not here in tweet thread land. We're in reality. And, I think that's the sort of the reality you do need to be mindful of, is if you do have too much pipeline in a funny way, it can work against you. And just to sort of be mindful and thoughtful around that.
Yeah, I think it really kind of ties back to what we mentioned before, which is maybe a better question to ask is like, how much of the quote unquote right pipeline do you actually have? And having a really clear idea, again, of like where you win, how much of that you win, and making sure that you're ruthlessly prioritizing your time on the right deals, I think does a lot more. Again, it's easy to fall into the trap of, I have 4x, 5x, 8x, 10x quota of pipeline. I think
I'm so rich in pipeline. I'm so rich in pipeline
for days. I think it's so easy to fall into that trap. But I think what's more important is like to, again, be honest with yourself about, what deals you have that you feel like you can actually close, and make sure you're spending time in the right places. And if that happens to be 1.5x or 2x, whatever number that happens to be, as opposed to the number that it feels better to have at a time like this, I think that's more important. And as a revenue leader, I think it's also important to take that approach with your team to make sure that you're not just kind of looking for that volume-based approach to make the numbers look nice, to look fluffy, but you're being honest and you're being real with what you have and where time is being spent.
Whoa, another great episode of Revenue Today. For show notes, links, and mentions, visit revenuetoday.live. For all my friends in the Rev Genius community, thank you. It's been awesome to spend this time with you. Please DM me any feedback and ideas in our Slack channel or on LinkedIn. If you're not in Rev Genius, join us at revgenius.com. It's free and it only takes like 2 seconds, and you'll be joining a group of 27,000 revenue professionals strong. We've got it all. Looking forward to seeing you there. Catch you on the flip side.